With paint, stain, wallpaper, and decorating ideas, Sherwin-Williams can help you create all the looks you've imagined.
And by DuPont Corian, used in commercial and residential applications worldwide, including new applications like furniture, lighting, and architectural details. Corian, looking beyond the surface for ways to express your design and performance needs.
Made possible by Hartco Quality Wood Flooring Company, makers of Pattern Plus 5000 and other sliced cut hardwood flooring products.
Hi, I'm Mitchell McDaniel, and welcome to today's Classic Homes. First up on today's program, we'll take a look at what arguably is the most important part of this or any other shelter, the roof. Over the centuries, roofs have been built in a variety of styles with a variety of materials. But whether it's made of sod, shingles, or cement, every successful roof has to do one thing very well: keep the rain and snow out of the house. Today we'll show you some of the repairs that we're making to our original slate roof. And we'll also show you the solution to the problem that we have with roof ventilation. When this house was constructed in the 30s, they didn't allow for the attic to be ventilated. That's caused us some problems, and I'll show you what we've done to solve them. And later, we'll show you how the fear of fire at the turn of the century changed the face of American architecture and led to the construction of homes like this one, built entirely out of granite. The Laurel Court in Cincinnati is considered to be one of the grandest mansions in the city. We'll give you a first-hand tour, so stay with us. It all starts when we return. This is the slate that we'll be using to make the repairs to our roof here in Jacksonville, Florida. And it came to us from a quarry up in Granville, New York, which is right on the border of New York and Vermont. They've been pulling slate out of the ground up there for 100 years or more. Now, what's interesting about slate is that it's a metamorphic rock. And what I mean by that, it's actually clay sediments that is transformed underground through millions of years of pressure. And if you look real close, you can see all the sedimentary layers. Now, some of the earliest quarries date back to the early 16 and 1700s, but it really didn't become a popular roofing material until the latter part of the 19th century, due to the Industrial Revolution and the improvements made to the transportation system, which made it more cost-effective to ship slate out of their regions where they were being quarried. Now, think about that, shipping thousands of tons of rock all over the country. Why would we continue to do so today? Basically, for the same reason they did when they built this house. They discovered that slate lasts, on the average, 2 to 3 times longer than any other roofing material. It wears well, and it looks great once it's installed. And it does come in a variety of colors. We're using a black, and it comes in shades of gray. And depending on the area that it's quarried from, you can get it in hues of red, purple, and even green. As durable as slate is, it still will wear over a period of time. Mineral impurities in the slate will lead to cracks and weaken its ability to shed water. Basically, the drier slate stays, the longer it'll last. A good example is slate that's installed on a very steep pitched roof that sheds water very efficiently. That'll last longer than slate that's put on a roof that's not steep so great. Our roof here in Jacksonville is in pretty good condition, although it has been subjected to 60 years of harsh oceanfront weather with a few hurricanes thrown in every now and then. So there are repairs that we are going to have to make. And earlier, we met with our roofing contractor, Bob Pastore, to take a look at some of those repairs up on the roof. So what do you look for then when you come up onto a roof like this for signs of damage?
Well, when we came up on this roof, we saw a lot of pieces that were sagging where actually the fastener had failed.
Oh, is that right?
And they start to tilt out. One is holding it. A number of pieces, a lot of pieces were actually split, broken, possibly from people walking on them or just failure in the slate. Slate can typically last 75 to 100 years old. This house is roughly 60.
It has a good lifetime yet.
Yeah.
So it's a fasteners to go, but what kind of fasteners have been used in the past and what are we using today?
Pretty much the same that was used on this roof since the beginning. It's copper nails, 1.5-inch copper nails. Copper typically will wear out faster than the slate. The flashings and the nails are sometimes the first things to go.
Is that right? So once you get the slate roof installed, you need to stay off of it.
Certainly. The last person on the roof should be a qualified roofing slate contractor, and the only person that gets on the roof after each year to inspect it should be that person too.
So what do we look for then as far as water penetration in the slate roof? Normally you would think that, this is pretty impervious to water, but what do we look for then that might cause us water damage on the interior of the building?
The first thing you want to look for is your flashing areas, your valley flashings, your chimney flashings, and your masonry materials.
So any projections coming up through the roof are a prime suspect for water, huh?
Most certainly.
Is that right? And what about replacing some of these slate tiles? I know it should be a very intense job replacing the flashing around the chimney, but what about the replacement of the broken tiles?
The broken tiles really aren't that tough to replace. In fact, Chris is just about to replace one right now, it looks like.
One right there with a big crack in it, huh?
Yeah, he's going to use a slate ripper here, go up under and catch the nails underneath. And once he pops those...
So you just break the
just
nails
like
off then with
Yep.
those little hooks?
Yeah, in fact, that's about all there is to it. What we'll use is a slate hook to put the new piece in, because we won't be able to get nails underneath.
Now these slate hooks that you use, are they non-corrosive? They look like they're stainless steel?
Correct. Stainless, we pound it in between the two pieces of slate above, and it'll come down and catch and hang right in there. Keeps it nice and loose, where the roof can expand and contract, the slate can expand and contract and move around.
How about that? Looks simple enough.
Yeah, but they all don't go in that easy, Mitch.
What about some of these other areas where you've got these roof jacks in here?
We're going to break a lot of tiles moving these jacks as we replace other tiles, and you can see there's plenty of tiles in here still that need to be replaced. These tiles with the broken ends like this.
Okay, and this right here, you go back and replace all
certainly,
these, right?
yes. Yeah, typically what's standard in the industry is if the corner is less than an inch up and an inch over, it's okay to leave. That's acceptable. Larger than an inch, it's got to be replaced.
Okay. Well, you're doing a good job of replacing, but one of the main problems that concerned us, and most of these older homes, they didn't have any ventilation when they were built. They didn't allow for roof ventilation.
They didn't realize they needed it back then.
Well, we need it now. Being down here in the South, you can realize that when you step foot in the attic.
That's right.
And realize some of the problems that we're going to be confronted with trying to heat and cool the inner portion of the house while the roof section up here is 150 to 160 degrees. So with the construction of the house being concrete, the beautiful frieze that goes all the way around being carved concrete or cast concrete, and the concrete crown mold, it didn't allow us anywhere so we could add ventilation strips. The roof is a hip roof, didn't have any gables for gable vents as well. Sure. So we decided to use mechanical fans in the attic to draw air up through the basement. We can take a look at that later. But once we got the air up here, we still needed to get rid of it.
And we're getting rid of it the best way we can, Mitch. We've almost hidden the ridge vents here on the top of the roof, as you can see, with these custom-built vents. Okay, this is the best place to have roof vents on the house, at the peak of the roof, where the hot air is rising up, naturally comes out of here, draws that cool air in, and just keeps circulating, getting the moisture out of your attic.
We went round and round and round, looking for a ridge vent that would conform to the house and not to detract from the roof line. So we actually ended up making these and working with you guys and creating a ridge vent that would solve all our problems. Not only would it look good, as this one does, but it also provides us the amount of release of hot air coming up out of the attic. Because all the roof was like this, wasn't it? Covered with 90-pound mineral paper?
Yes, in fact, that 90-pound mineral paper is more than what's necessary on a typical slate roof and helps hold in more moisture. So we cut that 2-inch strip right here to open up a hole so the air can breathe right on out. And it comes right up into here through our mineral fabric, which water typically won't penetrate, and the roof can keep on breathing all the way down the ridges.
Actually, it's a very simple construction. We've got 2 pieces of 3/4-inch plywood. The plywood's been primed, and under that, this is our venting material, where the air is going to vent through this and out. It's held together by this 2x2 spline that's been cut, and then actually sits on the roof about every 8 foot with these pressure-treated blocks. Now, on the top of it, we put this eave drip that goes all the way around, and it's covered over with a piece of peel and seal. So that's going to give us our moisture barrier, as well as this also has a UV prohibitor in it, right?
Correct, correct.
And so this system then just goes down like that one does. It attaches. Now how is it attached?
Mitch, what we did here is we took these 4.5-inch screws and we set them down through the plywood, into the 1-inch decking, and then into the rafters below.
And this is fine because we have a waterproof membrane down there. This is
Correct.
acceptable?
Yes,
Okay.
certainly.
Well, this is good. The cap doesn't deter from the overall look of the house because the roof really helps to distinguish this particular style of home. Once all the field slate along with the ridge caps are installed, Bob's crew finishes the job by sealing all the joints along the ridge with a special waterproof sealant. Now, let's take a look inside the attic. This fan, once we install it, will pull cool air up from the basement. And the way that we're going to do that is mount it in our elevator shaft. There we have enough room to create some ductwork that's going to pull air all the way from the basement, all the way up here into the attic with the use of this ventilation fan. And there'll be other fans situated throughout the attic to disperse this cooler air. It's also controlled by humidity. That means that the fan will go on once the humidity level here in the attic reaches a certain level. In addition, this warm air mass is going to be filtered up through our new vents that we cut in for our roof ridge cap. But you know, people building Beaux-Arts style homes at the turn of the century really weren't too concerned about ventilation. Their big concern was fire, as was the homeowners when they built this house. Here you can see these little canisters, and they're situated throughout the house, and it says for fire. And it's this little glass vial, and you can see it's filled with water. And it has this membrane on it that when it gets hot, this membrane will burn off, allowing this little canister to drop on the fire. Or if it was convenient, you can pull it out of its holder and actually throw it at the fire. An early form of fire prevention, although probably not too effective. But builders and architects at the turn of the century were not thinking fire prevention. They were constructing buildings that were basically fireproof, and they had good reasons. Take a look. It was before the days of mandated sprinkler systems and fire extinguishers, and many times fire departments arrived to find a blaze they couldn't control and couldn't stop. Entire cities were lost in a matter of hours. When a factory outside Cincinnati, Ohio burned in 1901, the factory's owner, Peter Thompson, decided that his new private residence would never suffer the same fate. Architectural historian Walter Langsam gave us a tour of this remarkable home, known today as Laurel Court.
The factory that Mr. Thompson owned, the Champion Coated Paper Stock Company in Hamilton, Ohio, burned in 1901, and they'd already suffered from a flood. And so he was obviously interested in fireproofing, and it's built of a solid granite, which is a very rare material for the exterior of a house. It's expensive to transport. For instance, the monolithic columns that are one solid piece are almost a demonstration of the hardness and solidity and expense of using granite. And it's very hard to carve, so that ornament is difficult to achieve, but you do get beautiful, sharp, crisp, precise edges. The house itself comprises 18,000 square feet, and that doesn't include a very large Normandy Manor farmhouse style garage, coach house, and conservatory or greenhouse of probably 8,000 square feet. Plus, at present, still 7.5 acres of land, including a very beautiful formal Italian garden, at least part of which is original. This superb pergola covered with vines that leads from the sun porch out into the grounds, and a Japanese garden, quite an authentic-looking Japanese garden. Because Laurel Court is built of granite, there is a harder character to it. The impact is not, in any sense, warmly appealing from the outside, but when you get inside, it's very different. As we enter the house, the first thing we see in front of us is this magnificent staircase. It's defined by beautiful ionic columns that echo those on the exterior of the house. It's a very dramatic effect indeed, as you can see. And instead of having a central hall, you have a lateral hall which extends sideways for the full length of the house. The hall is so long that it has to be broken up by pairs of columns, in fact groups of 4 columns, and they pile up in a wonderful way as you look from one end to the other. Mr. Thompson's library really serves as the living room for the whole house, at least in modern terms. but it is completely lined in African rosewood paneling and built-in bookcases. The climax is in the carved mantelpiece. The most spectacular room of the house, and probably the most appealing, is the music room. It's completely gilded except for the parquet floor and the painted ceiling. The walls and the ceiling of the house are connected with a cove with a gilt, a very subtle gilt lattice work pattern, so that the ceiling and the walls are both continuous. In the light of the very beautiful droplet chandelier of the dozen or so sconces on the walls, which are also crystal in style, you really feel you're almost in a kind of gilt crystal ball. It's an extraordinary experience. The dining room of Laurel Court, compared to the music room, seems relatively simple, but it does have flat pilasters, flattened columns, that flank all the openings, the windows and the door, which are really wooden version of the granite columns in the front of the house. There are recessed panels of beautiful fabric that add a warmth to the interior. Linking the dining room and the kitchen is an unusually large pantry. It's lined on almost every side by large glass-covered cupboards for china and glassware and silver and so on. Under the window on the opposite wall is a long counter of what must be early stainless steel, and it's very efficient as well as very handsome. In the center of Laurel Court is a really very large atrium or courtyard, which is also a kind of greenhouse. The roof at Laurel Court is a giant skylight, which can be put over the courtyard in the winter to keep tropical plants happy, and in the summer you slide it back and then you open up the total ventilation system of the house. In contrast to the warm brick in the courtyard, however, are the elegant Tuscan arcades, which have a very lovely rhythm and frame the plants particularly beautifully. When it was built, Laurel Court was certainly the grandest house in Cincinnati, and I think many of us considered that it still is, though it's rather formidable looking on the outside, more impressive than appealing. When you get in and when you've spent some time there, you realize that it really is a beautiful, comfortable, livable family house.
We're back in Jacksonville in our grand old home, and I wanted to take you down here in the basement to share with you some of the fire prevention methods that they incorporated when they built this house. And of course, they thought of everything, even elevators. But down here is where they had the greatest potential for fire, not just where the electrical systems were, but also the way they heated their home. They heated it with fuel oil back then. They had a huge fuel oil boiler, and this area was a heat exchanger unit, and it fed ductwork underneath the house and heated the other rooms. They didn't have air conditioning then, but they did have heat. But here, like I said before, the greatest risk for fire, and you can see some of the methods that they used to contain that if there ever was one. The floors, the walls are all solid concrete. Even the ceiling, which is our second floor, is cast in concrete as well. Take a look at some of the other methods that they incorporated. Like these fire hoses. You don't see too many of these hanging around in homes any longer. Most of them have been replaced by fire extinguishers. But they were also concerned about the spread of fire. So in all the openings, they used fireproof doors, which are a basic wood door encased in metal. And if you'll notice, you can see the old Underwriter laboratory seal still on it. After all these years, we're still concerned about fire as much as they were at the turn of the century. As a matter of fact, over 80% of fire deaths occur in the home. And annually, over $8 billion worth of property is lost each year. So what's the answer? What's the best way that you can protect your home and your family from fire? For those answers, we spoke with expert Richard Moyers. Hey, Richard, what do you think of our original fire protection system?
It's pretty sharp, but I believe we got something that just may take its place.
Is that right? Well, what do you got? Let me sit this down here.
Well, we're going to put an integrated system through the entire house, Mitchell, as you know, and we're going to use photoelectric smoke detectors in all the sleeping areas for life safety.
Now, these are the smoking detectors,
These are the
right?
smoke detectors. They go up on the ceiling. They have their own microprocessor, and they send a signal about every 7 to 9 seconds to the panel, telling the panel that they're on the job, that everything is okay. If the homeowner is at home and it goes into a trouble condition, then he can address it. If he's not at home, it'll call us and tell us that it's in trouble so that we can address it and call him and let him know.
These are hardwire systems.
These
They
are
don't require
hardwired
battery.
systems. That's exactly right. Now, you know, it's really relatively easy to put them in a new construction. In a house like this, it takes a little more work, but you know, but we can get it done.
Well, with new construction methods today, a lot of people are building with huge vaulted ceilings. I understand they've come up with something to take care of detecting smoke in those areas.
That's exactly correct. We use a beam detector, and this beam, there's actually two of them. There's one on one side of the room right at the top of the ceiling and one on the other side of the room. They shoot a beam back and forth, and the smoke breaks that beam, then it accomplishes the same thing.
It's operational through the keypads?
That's correct. Yes, sir. It's powered by the security system, so on each keypad we would have buttons here that would allow the homeowner, if they were to see a brush fire outside or a neighbor's house on fire or something of that nature, they could simply go to the keypad, hold in the panic buttons. That would send us a signal, and we would dispatch the fire department. That way the address is already known. They don't have to worry about giving addresses and so forth and so on.
And so I understand it's also being integrated into our phone system.
That's exactly right. The communication system in this house is the communique, and on each one of the telephones in every room throughout the house, we have a panic button for the fire system on the telephones as well.
At the entryway, we're putting some huge gates up, basically security gates. Right. And we have a fire. How are the police department or the fire department going to gain entry to the property?
That gate system will, in its controller, will have what we call an SOS, a siren-operated system. And when any emergency vehicle, in this case the fire truck, pulls up to that gate and hits its yelp siren, the frequency of that yelp siren will cause that gate to open for the fire truck to come in.
Well, it sounds like you've got it completely covered, but I still would like to keep our little automatic firemen. They're sort of very nostalgic, don't you think?
I think so, Mitchell. I think you ought to keep a couple of those. I really do.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Take care.
You may recall the biggest problem that we had with this roof system is when the house was designed and built, it didn't allow for any attic ventilation. That's why we went to so much trouble in designing a ridge vent system that wouldn't deter from the look of the roof. This will allow the hot air to dissipate out through the roof itself. But what are we going to do to replace that? We wanted to replace it with cooler air. Well, we couldn't use a passive system, meaning we didn't have any room for soffit vents on the edge of the house, nor did we have a gable so that we can put gable louvers in. So we had to pull the air out from elsewhere, and we decided to do that from the basement. We installed the fan, and we have ducts, standard HVAC duct lines that go all the way from this box down 3 floors into our basement. The fan is set on a humidity control so that when the humidity level here reaches a certain degree, the fan will kick on and it'll pull the cool air up from the basement. Now this will help us in 2 ways. In the summertime, of course, it'll help dissipate the hot air that's in the attic. In the wintertime, it'll help relieve the moisture content that has a tendency to build up in attics, which can result in damage to the woodwork, damage to the insulation, as well as causing the drywall or the plaster to sweat. In addition to that, it's going to be beneficial to the homeowners. This may save them up to 20 to 30% on their utility bills. As you can see, a good roof system on a home today does more than just keep the rain and snow out. Now, in our next program, we're going to be taking a look at our windows. When this home was built, it didn't have air conditioning, so all the windows are basically single glazed glass, which pose a problem for our new homeowners. With the introduction of a new HVAC system, we want to maintain a comfort level for them as well as some energy efficiency. These windows don't provide that, so we need to take a look at either making some adaptations to these existing windows or possibly even installing some new windows if we can find some that fit the style of our home. Also, we'll be visiting the University of Notre Dame, home of the Fighting Irish, to see how they solved a similar problem with windows during their recent renovation of the old campus library. Until then, I'm Mitchell McDaniel for today's Classic Homes.
Once a sleepy New England port, it would become the centerpiece of America's Gilded Age. Discover the mansions of Newport, Rhode Island, later this season on today's Classic Homes.
Funding for today's classic homes has been made possible by the following corporations.
This program is made possible by Pella, makers of classic windows and patio doors, bringing you style and innovation since 1925.
And by your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. With paint, stain, wallpaper, and decorating ideas, Sherwin-Williams can help you create all the looks you've imagined.
And by DuPont Corian, used in commercial and residential applications worldwide, including new applications like furniture, lighting, and architectural details. Corian, looking beyond the surface for ways to express your design and performance needs.
Made possible by Hartco Quality Wood Flooring Company, makers of Pattern Plus 5000 and other sliced cut hardwood flooring products.
To order a copy of this program, please call 1-800-256-4408 or send $19.95 plus $4 shipping and handling to the address on your screen. Please specify episode number 202 when ordering.
This is PBS.